Midoriya sighed, slamming down the screen of his laptop before leaning back into his chair, stretching out his sore muscles. He stood up from his desk, seeing there was next to no one left, and realized he had worked well past when he was supposed to. He enjoyed his hero work. He loved the impact he left, and how he could make the town feel just a little bit safer. But if there was one part he could do without, it was the paperwork. It took him hours, if not days, to finish without giving excruciating details. But Midoriya was meticulous by nature, so of course, he would give every last bit of information he had. That didn't come without its consequences, however. The rapidly progressing carpal tunnel being proof of that. He couldn't wait till he got home. He couldn't wait to see you. With the capture of villains such as these, he would stay overnight at the office to ensure that no one could follow him back home and attempt to hurt you. Oftentimes, it would be maybe a day or two, and once the villain was caught, he would head straight back home. But with this particular case, it took almost 5 days to bring the villain down. And with the religious amount of time and effort he put into now finishing his report, he hadn't left for home in almost a week, using the chase in the lounge as a makeshift bed, if he didn't just faceplant onto the desk from pure exhaustion. He hated staying so long without seeing you, but he knew if he didn't finish, he would spend tireless hours back and forth from the office, and you both would be right back to not seeing each other. He wanted to finish as quickly as possible, so once he did, he could spend endless time with you until the next case. But he missed you. He wanted to see you, and resisting the urge to toss away his work and come home running was becoming more difficult to ignore. He glanced over at his phone before picking it up, staring at the blank screen. He often wouldn't text while he worked, as you were easily a welcome distraction. But maybe hearing from you will be just enough to get him through this report. He pressed the power button on his phone, the screen coming back to life. He often kept his phone off while he finished his report so he could have minimal distractions and get back to you that much faster. Once it booted up, he instantly went to his text messages, typing away that he wanted to see you. Just as he was about to send it, a ping went off, followed by another, and another. The screen was now displaying multiple pop-ups for the messages he had received while his phone was off. He was surprised to see so many flooding in, but it made him smile, seeing the text that showed how much you missed him and how much you hoped he was doing well. As he was about to respond to you, another one came through. It was time-stamped for today, at 3 a.m. Izuku, are you free? I know you're busy. I just need someone to talk to. I'm just not feeling like myself. I'm sorry. I know I must be bothering you. Please, just call me when you get this. Actually, never mind. I know you have work. Just, something's wrong. I feel like I'm falling apart. Why do I feel so alone? I need you. I'm sorry. He stared at his phone, his eyes looking more and more anxious as more texts flowed in. Your desperate cry for help, yet your resistance to accept it. For you to text him before the sun even rose, he knew instantly that you didn't get any sleep. How long was this going on? It wasn't often that you got like this, but when you did, it was bad. Really bad. To the point that it scared him. Not because the thought of you being mentally unwell was unappealing to him, far from it, but because when you sunk that low, it was almost impossible to dig you out. And often in these cases, you wouldn't take care of yourself. He stood up abruptly from his chair, lugging his bag over his shoulder as he quickly rushed to the elevator. Work be damned. If you needed him, it can wait. The night air drifted into the window, the sound of crickets and ongoing traffic in the distance as you tossed and turned during another sleepless night. You were sure the bags under your eyes had only deepened, but you hadn't even looked. You don't remember the last time you even got out of bed. Everything felt meaningless, yet everything made you anxious. A darkness took hold and corrupted your entire view on life. You felt as though you were trapped in a constant loop. You completely lost hold on your concept of time. Had you not noticed the sunrise and sunset, you would not have recognized that a day had even passed. You couldn't remember how long you had been feeling like this. You just knew that once it took hold, you couldn't shake it off. You hated the thought of explaining it too. No one seemed to understand that you didn't have a reason to feel this sad. You just were. And no amount of sunshine, nature walks, or good wishes could fix that. So instead of trying to reach out for an outstretched hand, you denied them altogether, opting to try to deal with this on your own. But you only plummeted further into despair. You missed him immensely. The only shining light within the bleakness of your thoughts was that of the curly-haired, freckled face with the brightest smile you could imagine. He always understood you. He had always accepted you, and you never had to explain yourself. He loved you for you, and he made it a point to show you every chance he could get. You knew that if he saw you like this, it would devastate him. He already hated leaving you alone. After graduating UA, you both moved in together, and he rose up the ranks for years, so being called off for missions for long periods of time wasn't that uncommon. Normally, you would be perfectly fine while he was away, but something about this time only further exacerbated these negative feelings you have been struggling with. You wanted to see him, play with his fluffy hair, laugh with him, have a meal together, and curl up in bed together so you could talk about sweet nothings before eventually falling asleep. Despite the endless feeling of sadness, thinking about seeing him soon was the only thing giving you hope. You heard knocking on your door, soft at first, but progressively it became louder and more persistent. You had no intention of talking to anyone right now. You were prepared to shake them off when the knocking only got louder, banging even.
Baby?
That voice, could it be? You felt every muscle crying out to you, no longer used to the movement as you stammered to your feet, holding on to any and everything you could as you walked up to the front door. The knocking had already stopped. Were you just hearing things? Did you want to see him so much that your mind was now playing tricks on you? You creeped around the corner and turned on the light to the living room, standing there for just a few moments longer to make sure if you really heard anything. Nothing but dead silence. You turned to walk back to your room before a loud bang was at the door, the padlock falling to pieces on the floor and the edges of the door frame now frayed and splintered. Horrified, you turned back, holding onto the wall for support. Was this a criminal? You weren't in any position to fight. You saw as the person pushed the door open, their breathing ragged as they strolled into the entrance. After seeing the messy mop of green hair and the All Might shirt, you couldn't help the excitement that suddenly filled your heart. "Izuku?" You whispered, your voice soft from its lack of use. He quickly turned to you, his eyes lighting up with relief.
There you are.
He quickly set down the bags he had in his hands and stormed over to you, almost knocking you down with the force of his hug.
You're okay. Thank goodness.
He nuzzled into your hair, holding you so tightly you couldn't move your arms to hug him back. He normally waited for you to unlock the door for him while he was away. For him to break it in without a second thought, you knew he was worried, and he must have finally seen all of your text. You could feel tears rolling down your cheeks as he held you. You couldn't tell if you were just so happy to see him or your sadness was finally getting a release. But either way, you were glad. You were glad that he was here with you. He could hear your sniffles and slowly pushed himself from you, but made sure to keep you in his arms. He smiled softly, raising a hand to press right under your eye catching another tear.
I'm so sorry. I left you alone, sweetie.
You could feel only a rush of tears as your shoulders shook, your emotions finally having an outlet. I'm just so happy you're here, you cried out.
It's okay. I love you. I'm here. I'm here.
He held you there forever, constantly patting on your back, kissing your forehead and cheeks as he whispered more sweet words. He could hear as your sniffles calmed down and your body relaxed. He looked at your face that was now puffy from crying and your cheeks streaked with dried tears. He couldn't help but think that you looked cute despite looking so sad, almost like a sad puppy that he just wanted to cradle in his arms. His hands drifted down to yours, holding them tightly and prompting you to look at him, but you could only stare at the floor.
Sweetheart, look at me.
I'm sorry.
What?
I didn't mean to bother you.
You're not bothering me.
I tried so hard to be okay, and I just wasn't.
Baby, just look at me.
I couldn't shake this horrible feeling. I just kept feeling sad, and I couldn't do anything about it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Baby, look at me.
Midoriya shouted. You gasped in surprise as he grabbed your face and held it firmly so your eyes focused only on him.
You're okay now.
He breathed. I'm not, Izuku. I'm really not.
But you will be. This will not beat you. I know it.
You can't possibly know that.
You'll just have to trust me. Because I can see the beautiful pieces in you that sadness makes you blind to. I know you'll overcome this. But I need you to do one favor for me.
What's that? You asked hesitantly. Before you knew it, he closed the gap between you, cradling you close to his body as he nuzzled into your neck.
Don't ever apologize for asking for help. Not to me, not to anybody. There's no shame in wanting to feel better, and you deserve that. So please, don't write it off as a burden. I'm here whenever you need me. Confiding in someone is never wrong. So don't apologize when you need to. Understand?
The dried tears that clung to your skin were quickly washed over with new ones. The breathless gasps and silent screams pressed into his shoulder as you cried into his body, your fingers digging into his shirt as you tried to catch a single breath. Yes, I understand. He smiled, stroking the back of your head and holding you that much tighter.
There. Let it all out.
He soothed, rubbing circles into the small of your back as you cried. Midoriya hadn't moved an inch, making sure you knew that he wasn't going anywhere as your cries calmed. It wasn't until you groaned and stammered a bit that he found it fit to move you. Without a word, he picked you up in his arms, pushing the bedroom door open with his foot before laying you down. He kneeled next to your bedside, brushing at your now flushed skin.
Sweetheart, when was the last time you ate?
Your eyes widened before looking away from him. You felt ashamed that he now had to cater to you like a child. You tried so hard not to be a burden, and now you felt like one anyway. As if reading your thought, he gently caressed your cheek, getting you to focus back on him.
No bad thoughts, love.
He started.
I'm not judging you. It must be an awful feeling to be so sad that you'd rather suffer through hunger like that. It hurts me to see, but I would never shame you. I promise we'll make sure to change that too. We'll fix all of it, and I'll be with you every step of the way. So just be honest with me.
He gave you a small smile, rubbing his thumb into your cheek, the dry tears being wiped away. You sighed, your body curling up more into a fetal position. 3 days. You spoke softly. His eyes widened slightly before giving you a soft kiss on your forehead. His lips lingered there for some time, and you could tell this was the only way he could express his pain to you. The pain of knowing you're suffering, the pain of not being here for you. This was the only way he could show his anguish over this without crying in front of you. You never minded his tears. Seeing him be so open about his emotions is one of the qualities that attracted you to him. But he knew that seeing him cry would only make you more sad, and he would hold them back as best as he could.
We'll wait right here.
He pulled away from you slowly before heading out the door, closing it behind him. Your mind would usually wander when you were alone, just a daydream of random thoughts. But the state of your mind right now, all you could do was look down at the carpet, playing with the threads poking out of the comforter. You jumped when the door swung back open, Midoriya strolling in with a bowl in his hands. He plopped down next to you, placing the bowl near your hands. You looked down to see it was a bunch of chopped up assorted fruit that he must have brought home with him. He grabbed a spoon, holding a few chunks of melon up to your mouth.
Say ah.
You pouted, immensely overwhelmed by how embarrassing this was, but you knew fighting him was futile. Once you got like this, he was on full-blown caretaker mode. He would do anything and everything for you, and refusing it was just not an option. You opened your mouth, taking in the sweet pieces of melon he gave you. He kept at that until you finished half the bowl, your stomach not being able to handle much more. He accepted that and pushed the bowl away.
I'm gonna start a nice warm bath for you. Once you're done, I'll be waiting right here for you, okay?
You nodded, getting another peck on the forehead before he sped off to start your bath. You sat in the bubbly water, the hot temperature coaxing your skin and easing your muscles, taking in the sweet aroma that filled the room. You sat there for at least an hour, just relaxing for what felt like the first time in ages. Once you got out, you walked back into your room, the lighting slightly dim with candles and string lights. He walked up to you, handing you some fluffy pajamas, surprised when you felt a slight heat from them.
I threw these in your giant fluffy blanket into the dryer, so it'll be nice and warm for you.
You looked down at the clothes, a sheepish smile gracing your face. You jumped slightly once you felt a kiss grace your cheek.
I've waited so long to see that smile. Please let me see it more.
Your face blushed a bright pink, looking away from his general direction, but nodding all the same. You changed into the warm clothes, and once you did, he had you lay down onto the bed, covering you in your giant blanket and wrapping it over you until you became a fluffy burrito from head to toe. You wriggled around, unable to get much mobility in this new form, and getting a delighted chuckle from him before he helped turn you. He smiled as you snuggled up to his chest, his arms now wrapping around you as you both just talked. You both chatted for some time, catching up on the days you weren't together and how much you missed each other. Before long, you both slowly drifted off to a content sleep, his tears finally getting the release they needed as you now slept peacefully in his arms. A few days later, you stood nervously in front of a foreign building, hesitating to open the door. You felt a hand land on top of yours, a bright, sincere smile meeting your gaze.
You can do this.
You took in a shaky breath, lacing your fingers between his. Don't let go of my hand, okay?
I wouldn't dream of it. We're in this together, all the way.
You look back towards the door, the look of it intimidating you with just its mere presence.
You ready?
He asked. You took in another breath. Yes, I'm ready. I'm ready to be better. He smiled, holding tighter to your hand before tugging it, pulling you closer to him until his lips pressed against yours, completely blindsiding you. Although short and sweet, it was filled with love and adoration for you, even as he slowly pulled away.
I'm so proud of you.
You smiled before pulling open the door to the therapist's office, his hand never once leaving yours.